Good evening
Good evening.
and welcome to the September 8th, 2020 meeting of the Leon County School Board. We are meeting at the Aquilina Howell Center at 3955 West Pensacola Street in Tallahassee, Florida. We're glad to have you join us this evening. Mr. Superintendent, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would be honored, Madam Chair. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. The first item of business today is the final budget amendments for 2019 and 2020. Mr. Superintendent, would you lead us into that?
Madam Chair, this time I'd like to bring in our CFO, Kim Banks, and Naomi Coughlin and Kathy Sanders to review this document and answer any questions that you all may have.
Thank you. So for the first two items, for items 1.02 and items 1.03, those are both closing out our prior fiscal year. So the budget amendments that are in front of you, you receive budget amendments monthly. They basically align what our estimated revenues and expenditures were with actual. And so what we're going to do is when we move into item 1.04, we'll ask you to approve these to help us close out last fiscal year as we move into the new ones. So these normally come to you on the consent agenda. For item 1.03, that is our annual financial report. Again, monthly, you receive financial reports, which is reports from us for informational purposes, which is basically a summary of our revenues and expenditures for that month. The annual financial report is basically, it's where we ended the year. It's our final financial report. And what it shows, and you have one in front of you if you want to look through it. I'm not going to go through it in detail. But I will tell you our net position basically remained the same, which indicates that we have strong fiscal solvency, the ability to meet our bills and pay our current liabilities. And what we're going to be asking for in item 1.04 is permission to submit this to the Department of Education. I know it looks like a thick packet, but really there's about 20 pages in here that DOE actually reviews. The rest of it is required. And it basically takes our financial statements as a government entity and makes them look like a private sector entity. But the highlight in here, and I want to say it's on page 4, again, it shows that our net position basically remained the same, which is good news for us because we have a strong net position. And then last but not least, I wanted to move into item 1.04, which is which is our budget for fiscal year 2020-2021. And before we move into this budget book, we're going to walk you through specific tabs, but I wanted to thank Natalie Lowers in the back. She basically edited every single page in this book for us, every single chart, every single graph. We really couldn't have put this together without her. Even today, she went and waited at the printer. They were supposed to be ready at noon. They weren't. She literally was at the printer, like waiting there, helping bind to make sure that we had them for this. So we're so thankful to her. She's like our jack of all trades, and I just wanted to thank her for it. And she doesn't like being acknowledged in public, so there's that. It's always fun.
Natalie.
But if you will turn to the tab that says millage and taxes, I know this is the third time you're hearing this information, so we're going to try to go through it quickly. There really has not been a lot of changes since you heard this in the tentative budget hearing. The major change, and Ms. Sanders is going to discuss it when we get to her, is that DOE has now weighed in on how we account for receiving the CARES funds, and they've requested that we create 2 new funds. So when she gets into the special revenue funds, she'll address that. We have not to date actually received any of those funds, but our workbook applying for those funds has been approved. But if you look on page 10, as we've discussed previously, our tax roll in Leon County continues to increase. You can see over the past several years, it's grown. And from last year to the current year, it's increased by about $1 billion. So if you turn to the next page, page 12, where it says the absolute millage rate comparison, for fiscal year 2021, the millage that we're proposing to levy is 3.715 mils for the required local effort. Again, these are funds that we have to levy. We have to levy this millage and able to receive 132 million of state funding. Below that is our discretionary operational millage, proposed at 0.748 mils. And finally, we have our capital outlay millage of 1.5 mils, which totals 5.963 mils. If you look to the left column, the 2019-20, you can see that that is a decrease in millage. So our taxes have decreased this year by 0.204 mils. Below that, you can see the rollback rate. And the rollback rate is the rate that we would have to levy this year to bring in the same amount of revenue as last year. So even though our millage has decreased, it has not decreased to the level of the rollback rate, which was the 5.917. And that's what would have enabled us to bring in the same funds as last year. So that's why back in July we had to advertise a tax increase, even though our millage and our taxes are actually decreasing. On the next page, you can just see towards the bottom of page 13, you can see the difference in the tax roll. And you can see this year it's about 20.1, and last year it was a little over 19 billion. So that's the increase I was just discussing. And then on page 14, we're anticipating to bring in, related to this millage, about $4 million more than we did last year. And finally, on page 15, this shows what a home would be assessed if we had. This is basically showing the tax decrease. So the difference between the tax levy of this year of the 5.963 mils and the tax levy of last year, 6.167 mils, on a $200,000 home with a $25,000 homestead exemption, a homeowner would save $35.70 if the home had not increased in value. And that's the end of the millage section. What we're going to do is what we had done before. I'm going to let Ms. Coughlin jump into the general fund section and walk you through some of the highlights there. And then Ms. Sanders is going to walk you through the special revenue fund section.
Okay, if you go to page, we're going to skip through 16, 17, 18, and go to page 21. I'm sorry, not 21. I'm just prepared. Page 23. And this is a page I've seen the past two times that we've come to you. These are the final numbers. All the times before it's been kind of tentative numbers. We've closed out, but you can see these numbers are not that different from the numbers that we worked with all summer. We worked really hard to try to get the numbers as close as they could be when we brought the tentative budget to you. The areas that there is a slight difference, some changes in here would be, number one, the teacher salary increase amount that we got from the state. And you can see that that is 5.6 million. We talk about 5.3 million. 300,000 of that goes to the charter schools. They get their portion. So when you see 5.6 there, and then you hear us talk about 5.3, charter schools get their proportionate share of all the funds that we get from the state. There's some areas that I'm still working on, like the VPK. You'll see that we've had funds there before. There's not a budget there. That does not mean we're not going to get those funds. It's just at the time we were processing the budget, the schools were still working on getting those programs going and working with ELC to continue the funding. But there will be, in the first budget amendment that you get after September, at the end of September, will include those revenues updated in there. At the bottom, our ending fund balance this year you can see is $51,723,000. That includes all of our restricted, unrestricted funds that we have in the left over at the end of the year. It's up 1.9 from last year, and the unrestricted, and a lot of that's due to the fact we closed schools in March, so expenditures went down significantly starting in March. So there is a little extra monies in there because there weren't the expenditures that you would normally have from March to the end of June, with the schools open, with all the staff here completely, transportation, all of those types of expenditures. If you go to page 24, this is where we take the budget, the funds we get from the state, the leftover dollars, whether they're restricted dollars or whether they're unrestricted dollars that we get from the state, and then we allocate that out to the various areas in which we spend the money. There's nothing new on this sheet. You've seen this sheet several times. I can tell you there's very few places that it changed. Probably the one area that you might want to look at is charter schools. You can see charter schools went up by a little over $4 million. That's as of this budget here. Once we look at the numbers that actually are there, when we start doing FTE counts, that possibly may change. I'm anticipating it's probably going to go up a little bit. The McKay and Family Empowerment Scholarships, they increased the number of openings for the Family Empowerment Scholarships. So last year, we budgeted $2.5 million, and it came in at about that, a little bit between the McKay and the Empowerment, around there. This year, we're anticipating even more dollars, so we budgeted $3.5 million in that area. The area, you can look at the district cost centers. You've heard us talk about the cuts that were made at the district cost center, trying to prepare for any type of holdback we may have, or to become more efficient at the district level. There's about a $3 million, give or take, adjustment there. There was the increase that we faced this year that was significant from the state was the increase in the retirement rate. It was about a 3% increase. For our district, that was like about $3 million. So all that's built into all the areas here. We were lucky with health insurance this year. There was no increase in the health insurance, but it's still a significant cost to the district, even with no increase. And after we allocate all the funds out, you can see at the bottom, we have an unrestricted fund balance of $11.3 million. That keeps us within the 3% that we're required by law to have that we're required to have
By statute, right.
by statute.
Right.
Let me jump in here real quick, and I should have done this on the front end, and Kim mentioned Natalie. Kim, Naomi, Kathy, and to your people in your staff and your team, I watched personally the countless hours you spent preparing this document, and nothing will cost me my job or these folks up here their job quicker than this not being in order. And you guys worked tirelessly to get this done. I'm just very, very appreciative. I sleep well at night knowing that that it's in very capable hands, and I'm just very appreciative.
Thank you.
One area that Naomi went over that you'll see a huge increase was in miscellaneous. That item 10 went from 2.6 to 12.6. It's a $10 million increase. If you remember what Ms. Banks said before, there's basically a $6 million set aside for any budget cuts that come in there after the first of the year. In addition, that's where the $4 million that we're holding aside for LCTA and compression issues, but again, waiting on to see what the legislature has. So that's why there's a $10 million difference between last year and this year. But again, guys, thank you. I mean it. Thank you.
Other than those particular areas, there's not any significant other changes. Like I said, you can read how it's all broken down on page 25, 26, and 27. Y'all have seen all this. The superintendent just told you the significant change there. So unless you had any questions pertaining to the general fund, I'm going to pass it on to Kathy.
Okay, if you go to the Special Revenue Fund tab, the first page is the Special Revenue Key Points of Interest. The total budget for Special Revenue is $56.3 million. This includes our nutrition services. It includes all of our federal grants. And then as Ms. Banks had touched on, this is also where we're going to be budgeting for the ESSER funds and the GEAR funds. So we're seeing a budget of $7 million for the ESSER funds, which are the CARES Act funds, and then 1.3 as of now for the GEARS funds that we know that are coming in. There's some other key points that you're welcome to look at in your leisure. If you turn to page 35, 36, 37, 38, all those pages behind, it has the specifics laid out as to the revenues that we're estimating to bring in by each of those areas, and then the associated expenditures for all of them. And again, like Naomi had said, it's all very similar to what you had previously seen the other two times. The other section following is the capital improvement fund. And the total budget for 2021 is 72.5 million. There are numerous funds that make up the capital outlay fund, and they're detailed for you on page 46. And those are the budgets that we have for revenues and expenditures for 2021. And then also following that on page 48, you'll see comparisons for the actual expenditures versus the estimated for 2021 in a summary for you, again, each by fund. And the final one is debt service, which we've talked about before as well, and it's kind of uneventful because really it's just a holding fund for capital outlay to transfer the money. We're budgeting $64.4 million for this year, and that's to pay the different debt that we have, our COPS, our QZABs, and things of that nature for different loans that we have taken throughout the years. On page 54, there's some information pertaining to those. And then just like capital outlay, on page 55, you'll see the different funds that make up the debt service and how they're being budgeted for. And then more specific information on 57, 58, 59, showing actual from 2018 through today.
Question
Certainly.
on capital outlay.
Yes, sir.
How are we going to manage the decrease in sales tax dollars for capital outlay projects?
This year for capital outlay, we were estimating a larger decrease than what we've actually seen.
I see you estimated 2.4 million.
For the sales tax?
Well, capital outlay, in your description of capital outlay, you anticipate a $2.4 million decrease in response to the pandemic, and I can only assume that's from sales tax dollars.
And honestly, we were expecting much worse.
Okay.
So the 2.4, we did better this year than we anticipated with the revenues. So a lot of projects that we kind of were hesitant on moving forward with, that we, the littler ones that we held, we've budgeted accordingly for next year. We've worked closely with the superintendent and made sure that those projects are going to be continuing that need to. And then we've also got the new ones budgeted.
So when we get the capital outlay plan for the year, there'll be no impacts because we had already anticipated a far greater impact that wasn't realized.
We tried to account for it in 1920 and accommodate for what we thought was going to happen. And then we did make cuts for next year as well. We did try to scale things back. So there were some things that did have to come off the table. But in moving forward, if revenues recover and we have more there, it will definitely be allocated to those projects.
So a particular concern to me, and I'm sure I speak for Ms. Wood when I say this, will there be any impacts on furniture?
No, that is included again this year.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
You're very
That was
welcome.
that was going to be one of the last things to go. That was kind of a non-negotiable, unless we get completely whacked. And what was we realized ground zero was last April. That's when the governor did the stay-at-home order. Everybody was locked in their homes. And we knew it was going to be bad. It wasn't as bad, I guess, as we maybe had expected.
Right.
But of the, 22 million we generate each year from sales tax, we're guessing about between 2 and 3 million.
And really planning for the worst again. Hopefully it won't be that, and we'll be able to put more money out there as the revenues start to come in.
But not to flip back on Kathy, though, but we all, probably my fault because I've been bragging for the last 3 years about nutrition services and how that's one of the only departments that's been running in the black and blah, 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 blah. And we're getting hammered now, but, because kids, returning, we only have less, 50% or less of our students are returned, about them getting meals, about the reimbursement. So we know there's going to be a significant impact to that federal program that we're going to have to brace for. In addition to transportation, on Naomi's side, transportation FTE, because one third of our kids are riding buses, maybe not even 1/3, probably 1/5, 20% maybe are riding buses. So we know that's going to be impacted as well. So the furniture money's still there.
Yes.
Great. All right.
Are there any other questions?
Well, I am interested since we brought it up. Are we taking it? Are there? Do we anticipate any impacts on our human resources?
Human resources. Well, look, we went through an exercise late spring. That $3 million reduction in the cost centers, district cost centers, was a lot of hard work. They brought in every manager, every department, and looked at every employee, every individual, to try to repurpose, retool. I don't see anything else we could have done to brace, and that's basically where we're getting this $6 million that we set over, kind of off to the side. But we're running pretty much bare bones at the district at this point. I mean, I've told y'all for 3 years now, or 3.5 years, when I first came out here, we started down this process, and we accomplished a lot of good. The arts and athletics money, more for school supplies, the raises for teachers, the raising the minimum wage, and we did a lot by doing that with very little new money from the state. And so out here at Never Never Land, we're pretty much bare bones right now.
And the reason I ask this question, if we have not had here in the throes of a pandemic, the major impacts that it has on our tax base, both sales tax and our millage rates, our millage taxes, if we'd been able to keep all of our people employed, I think that deserves mentioning. And I think the community and the public should know that somehow we have been able to, through good stewardship, been able to maintain our employees with benefits, employment, and that's something worth talking about as we talk about our budget, that we don't anticipate letting anybody go. And every government and every jurisdiction cannot say that. And at the same time, we'll also be discussing at later times what will be raises for a portion of our workforce. So all of that is something that I think, in the context of this conversation, that bears mentioning.
Yeah, don't get ahead of ourselves on the raises yet. We got to see how bad it's going to be. But to your point, yes, I agree. We worked very hard as people moved on, as they retired, as they left the system, not refilling positions, not rehiring positions. We have taken full advantage of every opportunity we have with our federal programs, and just trying to think outside of the box and get really creative and drill down to what our needs are. And who can fill those needs, and if they aren't, then what else can they do to help the operation as a whole? And even to teachers, I mean, we still have a number of schools hiring teachers, and they're hard to come by. We're having a tough time finding folks to fill those jobs. So to your point, yes, it should be something that we're very proud of, that we have not added to the already high unemployment rate, not only here in the state of Florida but across the country.
I want to add my thanks to all of you sitting at this table and the superintendent. Y'all have done amazing things with this budget. I mean, I don't think many school boards are having this conversation where they have money at the end that they're setting aside for the emergencies, and just a lot of really good thinking, good stewardship of the taxpayer dollars. And I just want to thank you, superintendent, and all of you who worked so hard on this. Thank you very much.
Well, I'll go back to Merrill. I mean, I don't like to give Merrill credit for a lot, but I'm giving him credit for Kim, and I'm giving Kim credit for Kathy, and Naomi is the jam in the middle. But we have a lot of smart people, and not that Merrill wasn't smart. Merrill was a very, very smart man. But like I said, there are things that keep me up at night. Not this. We are in very capable hands.
Amen.
Great. Outstanding job. Outstanding. Thank you for your energy and time and effort that it takes to make us look as good as we look from this report. Were there further comments from your team, Ms. Banks?
No, ma'am.
All right. Comments from board members? If not,
I move for acceptance.
well,
I'll second.
Well, I think we have to move now to the part on the final public hearing of the 2020 budget, don't we, Miss?
Yes, we're at number 3,
We're at 3,
under item 1.04.
right. So,
Each one of these motions needs to be taken separately. We'll have a
Right.
motion, second, and a vote. So under number 3, we'll need someone to make that motion.
yes.
I move that the board adopt the attached resolution determining revenues and millage levied.
Second.
It's been moved by Ms. Jones, second by Ms. Wood. You've heard the motion. All in favor? Let it be known by saying aye. Aye. It carries. 4.
Yes.
unanimously or four? Have it? Okay, great.
4-0.
4-0. All right, we're at A under 4 now. Is there a motion?
I move that the board adopt the final millage rates for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30th, 2021. A for local required effort, 3.715. B for discretionary operating purposes, 0.748. For Cap C for capital outlay projects, 1.500. For a total proposed millage of 5.963.
Moved by Jones, second by Strickland. Questions? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
All right.
It passes 4-0. B is motioned by Ms. Strickland.
I move that the board adopt the final estimated budget for the fiscal year July 1, 2020 to June 30, 2021.
Second.
Second by Mr. Jones. Are there questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposes, same, it passes 4-0. C is moved by Ms. Wood.
I'm not seeing what I need to see. So
Okay.
Strickland.
Go ahead, Ms. Strickland.
Move that the board adopt the attached categorical flexible spending resolution to use categorical flexibility funds in the amount of $2.5 million.
Second.
Moved by Strickland, second by Jones. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposes, it passes 4-0. D,
I move that the board authorize the superintendent to approve the 2019-2020 annual financial report and approve transmittal of the program cost report and approve the final budget amendments, legal due date being September 11th, 2020.
Second.
moved by Jones, second by Wood. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
It passes 4-0. Thank you. All right. We move now to changes and additions. Thank you, Ms. Banks and
Thank you.
staff.
Thank
Outstanding
you.
job.
Great work
job.
down there.
Good job. Good job.
Thank you, Natalie.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Natalie. We're responsible for our fiduciary duties, and they help us to look really good. All right.
Dinner's on Miss Banks.
Wings.
If only there was a restaurant you could go to.
All right. We are now on item 2 of our agenda. Mr. Jones, would you please read the changes and additions?
Yes, ma'am. Madam Vice Chair, changes and additions 2.01, changes and additions September 8th, 2020. The superintendent recommends approval of changes and additions to the September 8th, 2020 school board meeting agenda as presented. Item number 7.04, approval of personnel action September 8th, 2020. Change in the items in the public content section and replace documentation to reflect this change.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by Ms. Wood. Questions? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes 4-0. Superintendent spotlight.
None tonight, Madam Chair, and I also do not have any recognitions, but I will be recognizing some folks at our next meeting that helped make our start as smooth as possibly could.
All right.
Mr. Superintendent, Madam Chair, if I may,
Mr.
Mr.
Jones?
Superintendent, I would, with your indulgence, if you'd be willing to consider, there are a number of youth entrepreneurs in our community who are enrolled in our schools, and I would love to invite them to a school board meeting at your invitation in the future, that we might be able to recognize and see what these young people are doing. They are across the width and expanse of our district, and I would love for us to have an opportunity to provide those young entrepreneurs exposure. And for those who I may not be aware of, who are also youth entrepreneurs in our district, I would love it if they would email me and make me aware of them, that we might find a time that we might put a focus on youth entrepreneurship in our district.
I think that's a wonderful idea. I see Dr. Gale taking notes so we can round those
And we
students
can
up
put
and let
a
them share a
date
little bit.
that is convenient for you with your own spotlights, but I think it would be a fantastic way for us to highlight the innovation and ingenuity found amongst our student population.
Okay.
I agree.
Thank you.
Agrees. Thank you. Recognitions?
None this
No
evening.
None this evening. Okay. Reports to be heard. The District Advisory Council? None today. Student District Advisory Council? None today. Title I Advisory Council? None today. Reopening Leon County Schools update.
If I may, Madam
Yes,
Chair, just
Mr.
one more
Jones.
thing. Although the Student District Advisory Council is not meeting, I would like to remind the district that we were the first to adopt the Madeline resolution, and with our elections occurring in November, I would hope that we would make certain that we would find time to continue in that same walk to ensure that we designate days. We know in the spring that is always the Tuesday following the King holiday, but in preparation for our young people to be engaged, and for many of them will be their first presidential election, that we will find time to make certain that our young people are registered to vote those who qualify across the district.
Good catch,
Noted.
Mr. Jones. Yes. Yes, sir.
So, Madam Chair, we'll get into the reopening update. You remember when I brought the plan forward, the reopening plan, I quoted former Chief Justice Brennan, who said, "We must meet the challenge rather than wish it were not here." And over the course of the last 6 school days, I have visited 22 schools, and I can say without a doubt that everyone in the Leon County school system is meeting the challenge. And I have been so impressed at all of the hard work by our teachers, our school administrators, and countless others, including the members of this board, all of the preparation, all of the hard work, the task force. I could go on and on and on. That paid off last Monday. And there was a lot of, I was very anxious. I didn't sleep much Sunday night. Monday morning early, I went out to wish well our school bus drivers, and we don't want to have to relive last year. Went off without a hitch. Not a single problem with transportation. So kudos to James Cole for picking our children. Not as many on Monday morning, not as many. Picking our children up. I met them at Godby High School when they exited our buses. I walked the campus at Godby High School because another fear was, would our children wear a mask, especially our high school kids? Would they respect the protocols that we put in place and the expectations that we put in place? Walking around outside in the courtyard at Godby High School, it became abundantly clear that those young people were going to meet that expectation. Every one of them, even outdoors, had their mask on and was being respectful of social distancing and everything that we preached for the 2 months prior to leading up to school. I then went to Sable Palm and welcomed some children off the bus at Sable Palm as they did the pediatric assessments and checked the kids that they got off the bus for their temperature to make sure they were in a good place physically before entering the campus. I then went to the call center out here. As you know, we set up that technology call center, a transportation call center. The phone didn't ring at all, which is wonderful news. But with the technology call center that we set up the week prior, the Thursday prior to school starting, as we were handing out all of these desktops and all these devices to make sure that our parents and our children were in a place to start academically on day one. That hotline ran all weekend. It's running currently from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and they started fielding calls. And when I was in that call center, I kind of got caught up because it gave me almost flashbacks to last year being in the situation with our buses. Then I stepped out at about 6 p.m., and as we were navigating, then Jillian sent a team over, Dr. Gale sent a team over, Chief Hunkyar was in there, Bill Nimmons and his team. I don't want to leave people out, but it was an unbelievable team effort. When we talk about team, the Leon County School team, this was a true example of what a team looked like. And as I stepped out, I was concerned. I was like, oh my gosh, did anything work today? I started calling principals, about were kids able to get in? Were kids able? And the resounding answer was yes, it was work even on day one. The devices, all of the cameras, the dongles, everything that we did in advance, a lot of those, the fruits of our labor were paying off, even on the very first day. And there have been calls, and the calls today on day 6 are much less than day one. But for the vast majority of our schools, and those 22 that I visited, and Sharon, if you would put up the picture now, of the 22 that I visited, it was exactly like we talked about. That the brick and mortar kids were socially distanced in their classrooms. They were spaced out. This was the first day at Sable. No, that's not Sable Palm. I think that's Kate Sullivan. Go to the next one. I jinxed her. So the arrow won't. So I had a feeling this would. Anyway, so Denver, can you step out? But I want you. I think this is important for you guys to see what things look like at the schools I visited. Anyway, you have to take me at my word, right? As she's trying to get it to play.
Okay.
All right. So there's Fort Braden. Click the double arrows where it enlarges. That's before school at Fort Braden. You can see all those are 8th graders in the gym at Fort Braden, socially distanced. All of them respectful, having their mask on. Can you go to the next picture? Yeah. There you go. Technology at its best. And there's something, I don't know if it's something about, will you see if Denver can come out here, please? So at all the 22 schools that I went to, right, kids were able to social distance. We've been dealing with issues, as we knew, and Dr. Cox is going to speak to in just a minute, about contact tracing and things like that. But at all 22 of those sites, what we talked about, again, not perfect, not forever, just for now, but it was working. And our kids were able to remote in. We're still having a couple of hiccups with Zoom, but for the most part, kids have been able to remote in. Whether the DA students and the students in class, if they are going to quarantine, they would take their device home. They'll quarantine, and then they'll remote in during the quarantine period. And then when the quarantine's over, they'll come right back in to brick and mortar. So again, it went better than even I had hoped for, and I'm very proud of the team that helped make it happen. The teachers who, for a lot of teachers, it was their first day again because they spent all summer long learning Canvas, learning Zoom or MS Teams, trying to rearrange their classroom and their space, secondary teachers adjusting to block scheduling and things like that. So it was truly a team effort, and I'm just couldn't be prouder. Couldn't be more proud.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Ms. Strickland?
I too just want to say
Yes.
it was particularly quiet this week.
It was.
It was really quiet, and I think out and about, I ran into a few parents, and with their kids had just picked them up, and at the bakery. I was at Tasty Pastry one day. How did school go this morning? And they were so happy to be back. Obviously, the parents were happy, but the kids were happy. The kids were they were excited. They had their mask on the bakery. It's just become part of their life. Like you said, I think they've adapted to it quicker than we have. We're like, okay, you can take their mask off, and they're like still wearing them. So, weeks and weeks and months of preparation. And I just want to take a minute to thank everybody here. There's no words that can express our appreciation for every teacher, every administrator, everyone at the district. I mean, the effort that was put into opening this school year was unthinkable 6 months ago, and you guys did it. And I think our community is grateful for all the options we gave them. And like you said, we're never going to make everybody happy, but we did the very best. And I saw a lot of happy parents and a lot of happy kids this week. So thank you guys for all the time that was spent this summer.
Yes, she's right. Further comments?
Well, I'd like to.
We're still looking at.
Yes, some more pictures.
Yes, we have more.
All right, so
There's
is
more.
an art class at Deer Lake.
Okay.
That is a young man at one of our elementary schools having a mask break and getting some water.
We know about that.
So those are the hall. That's the kids coming down after school at Leon High School. Everyone has their mask on as they're exiting the building. That is a class at Fairview Middle School. You can see there are only 3 students physically in the class, and the other students are remoting in. As you know, we have some schools in some parts of our community, about 60%, 65% are physically there, 35% are at home, and then at other schools, it's exactly the opposite. Again, there's the gym at Fort Braden before school with their 8th graders, socially distanced. That is a class at Rickers High School again. That's a class at Cobb Middle School, and you see they have their devices out. That's a math class at Cobb. So those are the Chromebooks that we purchased, the 4,500 that we dispersed to the brick and mortar kids in these hybrid classes. So that you have X number of kids with 6 feet apart in the classroom, and then you have the other kids that are remoting in. That's a class at Kate Sullivan. You can see the students on their devices and the teachers at her desk. That's a class at Rickers, and you can see all the kids that are remoted in. And you see the one student that's sitting there. I believe that's that's like a physics class. That's another class at Fairview Middle School. That's Dr. Smith and I at Oak Ridge. That's Deer Lake. I was at Deer Lake today, and they're still learning new things with the technology. Hey, if you hook this to that, as they're starting to share with each other like best practices. So a teacher at Deer Lake told Mr. Mills something. He was going around showing other teachers, hey, if you plug this HDMI cord into, you can then flip your class around, and so they're every day is an opportunity for them to learn how to make it just a little bit better. But you can see again that all the students there have their devices. That is what school that is. I think that's Leon again. That is a band class at Fairview Middle School. You see all the kids in class that are socially distanced, and they had a kid that was playing a trumpet, playing a selection in front of the class from home, playing the trumpet. You have my video or no? Well,
Mr. Superintendent.
so hold on 1 second. I don't want to miss an opportunity to actually. So this is Deer Lake.
And go! Come on, get ready. Y'all need to chill. I got a timer going. If you feel you can bottle, go over your toe. Ear to pocket. Good job, 6th grade. Hop,
Kids being kids again.
More than halfway there.
So glad they're back.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, nice job, 3, 2, and 1 time. Very nice job.
That right there makes all of our hard work worth it. It just does. It's kids being kids again. Kids back in school, getting back to some sense of normalcy, having physical activity. But I will say that having visited these schools, especially with our high school kids, I'm worried. They have a glass look on their face, a lot of them, and they need the adults in their lives right now to be positive, It can't all be negativity and doom and gloom and why we can't or why. They desperately need us to step up as leaders. And I know there's still anxiety, but our kids are counting on us. And those kids right there being kids again is the day that we've dreamt of since they left on March 13th. So with that, Dr. Cox, why don't you then give them some of your statistics, and then we'll start answering some questions.
Okay, Dr. Gale, I had a couple I wanted to show if you can pull those up. But
good luck.
You know, after spending all summer and late spring trying to put the health and safety return, and of course being a national issue and national consideration and all the part about the mask and everything, my trusty assistant and I were so glad to get into the schools this week. But Monday and Tuesday, we camped out in our office preparing for phone calls that never came. And I'm going to tell you right now, one of the issues that we spent a lot of time on, and that's the mask issue, it just hasn't materialized. It's been fine. Dr. Gale, if you can find those or not, but I'll go ahead and talk. If you pop them, okay, there you go. Real quick, those dots, that's at one of the elementary schools, that's the social distancing. The students stand on those dots. They're over 6 feet apart down the hallway. Next slide. Okay, that's what it says on, if y'all can see that. So every dot's got a positive statement. Next slide. Next slide. And next slide. This is consistent all throughout our district. All right, I wanted to show this real quick. This is a class that's socially distanced. That teacher in the front, she had a great way she handled her classes. She said now when she needed to help somebody, she would simply say, "I'm leaving my safe place." When she did that, all those students in unison pulled their mask up or made sure their mask was in place. She did the same thing. She walked over. She didn't know I was coming. She walked over, helped the student, walked back. That made me so proud. That's what I wanted to see right there. We'll have no quarantines in those issues. Next slide. This is Crocodile. You can see this is Sullivan and the cafeteria. They have two cafeterias. It's an older school. But you don't sit on a crocodile. So that's how they space them around the table. Next slide. That's an art teacher. She's one of our developers, okay? She's also a teacher at Springwood. She was showing me how everybody has their own manipulatives, their own stuff that they use in the art class. She disinfects and cleans them, puts them in that. Next slide. And that's just she has these paper bags full of them based on classes. That's how she's keeping the place clean and sanitized and everything. I just wanted to show you all that because this is what we worked for all year long, and the teachers are doing it, and it's working. Next slide. And that's just some of the posters that we sent out. We sent out thousands of these things. It was in a class. And the next slide. That's the principal. That's the principal of Springwood. And you can't see that, but and I can't see it either from here, but it says, "I'm your principal and I love you," something from 6 feet away. So it's kind of interesting, but that's the shirt that principal wears there. Thank you there, Dr. Geller Denver. And I'll move on to some statistics now for everybody. All right, so when we have a situation, and I'm going to give you the numbers, when we have a positive student or an individual, we have 3 letters that we send out. The first letter goes to the community, that school community. And they're all the same. We've sent them out to all the schools. Other than the school name, they're pretty much very similar. The second letter goes to every parent that child attended to let them know that we have tested an individual in your class. And the letter just simply tells them that you will be contacted by the Department of Health for further instructions if your child was a potential exposure, okay? And then the third letter comes from the Department of Health and a phone call to that parent if a child was exposed. They get a letter and they get a phone call. And we have been I know the Department of Health, they've hired a team of people to help with their contact tracing. Coco McClellan is the lead on this. She has 2 or 3 assistants. And right now we've been able to get a hold of everybody the same day when those situations arise. So 3 letters. One that notifies the community that the principal sends out, a letter that goes to all the parents of the children that were in that class of the exposure, and then the final one from the Department of Health with a phone call to the students that need to be in quarantine. We've learned that we've had to gather a lot more information. So so here's things that we're making checklist, and we'll go over this with our principals meeting tomorrow, is once a student is identified as testing positive, we need to find out if they're a bus rider or a carpool. A bus rider or carpool. We need to verify that the cafeteria, that they were social distance in the cafeteria. Also, if they were an after-school program. So you can see that this kind of way it requires a little bit more deep investigation. Here's a big one, siblings. We had one this week that the student that tested positive had a brother, and the brother has a different last name in a different school. Creates a little bit of a challenge, but that's part of what we're doing. Just to give you some numbers, last week, okay, so that was Monday through Friday up to 4 p.m. Now, we've created a dashboard, and it is now up on our Leon County School homepage, and that will be updated daily. So at the end of the day, we give to Chris Petley, who controls the dashboard, the number of positive, and we send to DOE also the number of positive, both students and staff. Okay, so last week we had 3 employees that were positive and 7 students that were positive. Now, needless to say that these didn't get it at school. They got it at other things because they were infected before that school actually started. Neither here nor there, but there's 3 employees in Southern. This long weekend, so from Friday at 4 p.m. till 8 a.m. this morning, 1 employee positive and 6 students positive. And my office is notified on all of these. So we worked on it all 3 days during the weekend because we know it's a tough time right now with school starting. Today, 1 employee positive and 1 student positive. So what's that? That's 5 total employees and 14 total students. Now in quarantine, you may ask about quarantine, and I'm actually bringing on another assistant to help keep up with the quarantine data, but a total of 52 students in quarantine. It was a little bit higher, but we had a situation at one of the schools we were able to pull back a substantial number of students that actually met the safety protocol. We want to emphasize, and Rocky and I have been on Facebook every afternoon, and I'm shouting this from the top of my lungs. If you're tested, staff or students, do not come to school waiting on the results. We had a handful of that. For whatever reason, they had them tested, and the student felt better, so they sent them on to school, and we get the results midweek. That's a killer, so to speak. So don't come to school waiting on the results. If you're sick, if you have symptoms, you're sick. Go to the doctor. Don't come in. And I want to tell you how well this system is working to me. I don't care what the naysayers, it's working. I've been in the schools. These are the schools that have had a positive student. Let me read some of these to you. With no quarantine, which means they classes were designed right. They were cohorted correctly. Their lunch was done properly. Their before after school was all done by the book. So Rudiger had a positive case, no quarantine. That means nobody was a potential exposure. DeSoto Trail, 1 case, no quarantine. Rickards had a case, 1 quarantine, but that's because that child was in a carpool. Godby, 1 case, no quarantine. Roberts had a case, 3 kids in quarantine, all in the same carpool. That's what you want to see right there. We're going to have cases. It's a highly contagious disease, but that's how that went. That's all I have, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Cox. And like we said before, this whole plan was developed as knowing that there was going to be kids coming and going who were going to be under quarantine protocol, whether they were high exposure or not. But we also know that the vast majority of our schools, if they're able to get 6 feet or more, which won't trigger that quarantine into play. But even if it is, we're built for that. Even if we have, of the 15,000 children in our school, we are made for kids to take the device home, and that's why we spent all that time sending desktops home for those kids that are in DA for the first 9 weeks of the school year, so the kids and school in brick and mortar would have a mobile device that would then allow for them more easily to transition in and out of the classroom, from home to the classroom, back and forth. But that's where you see the fruits of our labor paying off. Justin Williamson, and you and
Superintendent,
you have
can
a
we
question?
ask questions to Alan before we lose him?
Yeah.
Thank you, Alan. Great job. I think, again, we're seeing the fruits of a lot of hard work this summer, a lot of questions and what if, and it's like, oh my gosh, look, it's working. I love the positive messages on the dots. Question about the dashboard. So is this going to show a rolling cumulative number of cases at each school, or are we going to just show new cases by the week? How's that going to work?
So the dashboard will show the week. So like it'll show, oh, by the way, before I forget, that teacher that we took the picture of that had the baggies, Lori's just reminding me that is the music teacher. So sorry. Anyway, music teacher. We'll make sure I get that straight. And the bongos in the back, not giving that away. We're doing, it's gonna be just daily, but you can see the whole week. Now, right now, the plan is that every Monday we refresh it. So we start a new week. So if you look at it on Friday, you're going to be able to see Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, but then we're going to refresh it on the next Monday.
So meaning 2 months from now, it will show all cases. So it may say, it may go for child, may go from 2, and then if there's 2 more next week, it'll say 4, and then if there's 4 more.
No, I'm not No, it's going
Not
to be
keep
new
it
data.
rolling.
It's new data for that day and that week.
So what DOE, every day Dr. Cox has to report to our DOE buddy, the numbers for that day that's reported on that dashboard. So they, by the day, want the number of employees and the number of students that are reported positive. Correct, Dr. Cox?
Yes. Yep. Yep.
I'm with you.
I mean, there's a number of ways it can be done, but you can pull it up that day and look and see, what it is.
I think we should have a cumulative total as well, somewhere. Just so we get the overall picture of it.
If there's a running, if there's a running tally, I mean, I guess people could, they could add them up and show their own cumulative. I just want it, whatever we're showing, I just want it to be clear to people what it is we're showing them. I think those statistics, and we've seen that with counties and, other locations, it's like, is this a rolling number? Is this a just this week number? Are we looking at day by day?
So right now it's day by day. I think it can be somewhat misleading if we do a rolling. I mean, the kid that tested positive is back in school, but
Right.
they're still showing as an active number.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the number of kids who are out at that school, I'm not sure how hard that would be to track, but we can, so but then you have to, as they entered back in, you'd have to take them off, and then if one went out, you'd have to put one on, and then so that you'd be back and forth as the kid went out adding, and then as they came back subtracting them.
So like this one, what we're looking at today says Tuesday, September the 8th. So is this everything through from
That was from
But that one included the long weekend. See, look at, there should be fine print above it. It says Saturday, Sunday, and Monday data.
Okay. So this is basically new cases that tested positive between Saturday to today.
Yes.
Yes.
So
correct.
then tomorrow, Wednesday's update will only be new cases as on that Wednesday on that 24-hour period.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a place that people can go back and see what the trend was? So are we capturing this data in another location so they can see day by day, maybe like an overall?
I'm sure we could do a weekly, right? Or wait until the end of the month, or if you want to know every week, add up Childs High School, add up Leon High School, add up Cobb Middle School. Is that what you're saying?
I think that would show a bigger picture for our community of, if people want to know, what school seems to have more numbers. Of course, obviously the populations are different, so we may need to quantify that and put, I hate to get too in depth, and we don't want to go overboard with what we're asking people to show, but I do think it's important that we show something that captures an overall from the beginning of school until,
Okay, we'll work on that.
Yeah.
Alan, I do have a question though. The DA kids, are we tracking those and we're attributing them to their home school, but we haven't been notified of any DA kids positive?
No, we're not tracking that. Nope.
And see, so what you're going to have is, since we're not tracking that, you're going to have a school like Childs where 70% of the students are physically on the campus. That is obviously going to trend a lot higher than a school like Rickards, where 70% of their students are at home.
Well, I think
Sheer numbers.
I think that's important too. That if we're only tracking brick and mortar cases, that we need to that needs to be defined here
Do a
somewhere.
Percentage of students.
That are brick and
Yeah,
mortar.
we'll figure it out. So right now, we know we're announcing to the public that we started this
Yeah,
dashboard.
it's just a work in
It'll be
progress,
running
I think.
daily, and then we can figure out how we'll have the information. We'll have the numbers from each day, and then we can figure out how we want to post it.
Okay.
Miss Superintendent, I have like was just mentioned, we've got the data. I've looked at a lot of dashboards from around the state. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat. I think the main thing we want to do to get started was post the positive ones for that day and to continue that going. But yeah, we can keep it going. There's all kind of ways to do it.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
All right, great. Do you see? I know Mr. Williamson on. What about Mr. Nimmons? All right, Justin, you want to give an update first? This is my new hero, one of many. I still owe him a Rubik's Cube because I said this was the man that put together our device plan of all the desktops that we shifted from school to school and then sent out to our families, and then circle back with all the laptops that we distributed school to school to all of our brick and mortar kids. So Justin, just again, hats off, buddy, and just you're amazing. So thank you. So you're gonna give an update maybe on where we are with devices and some of the questions we're fielding now in the call center and how the volume's going?
Sure. So just kind of a quick rundown of things that have happened in the last few weeks. So we have deployed, imaged, and configured 1,100 laptops for teachers who did not have a school-issued laptop, or they had an older school-issued laptop that wasn't suitable to host online learning. So all of our classroom teachers now should have a school-issued laptop that is capable of doing online learning. We've also, as the superintendent discussed briefly earlier, we deployed desktop computers to our Digital Academy students who are at home. And as part of that, we imaged, configured, boxed up, and completed an inter-school transfer of approximately 2,500 desktops for Digital Academy students. We did that because some schools may have had 200 students in Digital Academy, but had 400 desktops available, whereas another school may have had 400 students in Digital Academy, but only had 300 desktops available. So we shifted around 2,500 desktops between our schools to ensure that every school had enough desktops to take care of their Digital Academy students. We also, as part of that process, imaged, which takes about an hour to image, which is the preparing process for a desktop computer. We imaged and configured and boxed up and distributed to our families approximately 8,500 desktops with wireless adapters and webcams to go along with those.
What was that number again? As I'm staring at Robert here in the back, who's been working 24 hours a day to help get this done. Tell me that number again.
8,500 desktops.
Amazing.
Wow, that's great.
8,500 dongles and 8,500 webcams and yes. All right, keep going.
Once we completed our desktop deployment, we imaged, configured, and distributed approximately 5,000 mobile devices to our schools for brick and mortar students to use in the classroom. So those are some mobile devices that we had pulled back from schools that were unused earlier in the year, as well as the Chromebooks that the superintendent referenced earlier. So we prepared all of those devices and sent those out to schools. Just kind of as we talk about some of the software things that we're doing, just a kind of a quick update. So Zoom is now, a lot of our schools and teachers are using Zoom to deliver their live instruction. And so I ran a report this afternoon showing that since the start of school, we've hosted approximately 19,000 Zoom meetings and a little over 11 million minutes of Zoom has been done in the last 6 days. We're averaging close to 55,000 participants a day, which equals, for the number of students who are in Digital Academy, that equals a little bit more than attending three and a half Zoom meetings a day. So they're able to Zoom into their classrooms. And then we also know that we have a small percentage of our classes that are using Teams to deliver their virtual instruction as well. And then when
report on, talk to Dale about bandwidth. That was another big concern. You want to tell them information on bandwidth?
Absolutely. So as we said early on, this issue first came up in the task force, back in June, July, and we've talked about a couple of times since then. So our district currently monitors our bandwidth all the time. We have a number of really sophisticated systems in place that keep a track on our bandwidth. We're able to see right down into any classroom whether they're having any bandwidth issues. And there's a number of technologies we have at our disposal to assist with that should any issues arise. What we are currently seeing is that we haven't topped about 45% of our usage. And that's at our peak. So at our peak demand, we hit 45% of usage, which means that we had 55% of our available bandwidth was available to still stream content out and to download content in. So we're sitting very well on bandwidth within the district.
Can I ask a question about that?
Uh-huh.
Just what do we know about our DA kids being able to get to the internet, and do we have any progress report on that?
You want to give them an update? The question was about our DA students, and that's when I was fielding those calls on that first day. And then I made a couple of phone calls to people that I'm close with and asked them, and they said the vast majority of their kids did not have any issues. We have some schools that are better than others. Justin, you want to speak to where we are now and what your sense is?
Yeah, so a lot of our families, we didn't have a lot of families who took us up on, who needed assistance with connecting with internet. But for those families that did need assistance connecting with internet, our foundation really took the lead on that, and they offered, lots of different connection options to those families. It is my sense, and having some conversations with the foundation, is that we actually haven't had a lot of families who have taken us up on that. But so the majority of our families were already connected to the internet, and those who didn't have the ability to connect to the internet, they didn't have internet service, and they were unable to afford internet service. Our sponsorship program through the foundation has been able to connect those families to the internet, and so depending on where they live, we've offered a number of connection options. For some families, a mobile hotspot is their only option. So students who may live out in, and I'll just say maybe out in the Woodville area or far out in the Fort Braden area, areas that Comcast doesn't serve. The foundation has been able to provide those families mobile hotspots, and then for those who are in town, they've been working with the foundation to secure Comcast, which has a little bit more reliable than a mobile hotspot. So we've certainly been going that route whenever we can.
But in total, the number was only 150 to date.
I'm sorry, say again.
The total to date is talking to Mr. Clark was 150, only 150. So we've come to find out that the vast majority of our families have reliable internet at home.
We've confirmed that with the principals in our outlying schools. That their children
Are you hearing any issues about connectivity, Justin?
No, sir. I haven't heard any issues from our schools.
That's great news.
Yeah, it is.
That is very good to hear.
What about attendance in terms of the DA kids? Do we know?
So I think, like I said, some schools are doing better than others. The 22 that I went to, you had some with the first day. Someone close to me had only one student was missing. So, but in some other schools, they're still running them down, but the schools are feverishly, making calls and getting them. So, some schools have been more successful than others. Some parents, it's been a challenge to get set up, to get going. But Bill and Dale and all of that team over there has just been working their behinds off night and day to ensure that all of our kids and families are getting every single thing they need. If they have a CPU that's bad, they come, and Robert and his guys have a stack of them. They're already re-imaged. So they're just constantly swapping stuff out to get kids where I don't know how Justin feels. Someone had told me 2 months ago we'd be where we are today on the 6th day. I'd have said they were crazy. I mean, I'm just very, very pleased. But we're not finished. We know we still have some issues and some glitches to work through, kids to track down, some more, working with some teachers on the technology, because it's not easy and hasn't not been easy, and we are very aware of that. So, Justin, you have anything you want to add? And I'm going to ask Jillian to pop on real quick about PD.
I was just the parent help desk, which you had spoken about earlier as well. So we've received well over 1,000 help desk calls to parents, and so we have a dedicated team of phone bank operators who have been answering those calls, trying to make sure that nobody is having to wait on the phone there. And if they're able to to answer the question quickly, they do so. If it requires a little more technical assistance to solve the problem, they take that information down and they pass it off to one of our technical staff members. And so we've been able to resolve most technical issues typically within just a few hours. That parent, if they're not resolved on the phone the first time they call, typically get a call back within just a couple of hours with their issue being resolved. And then as the superintendent has said, our phone bank is operating Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., and then Saturday and Sunday from 1 p.m. to 7 p.m.
I have a quick question just before Jillian starts, Mr. Superintendent. I'm wondering, I know we've only been in school, 2 weeks, I think, thereabout. Have we experienced any discipline?
I know.
6 days. Yeah.
Well, all right, even not then. But we have no disciplinary cases to report. And I'm just wondering about the atmosphere in the home for learning when it comes to quietness and that kind of thing. In some counties, there have been some other problems. I've not gotten any comments about that for our parents. And so is there any update on that kind of behavior and things smooth in that area?
Not that I'm aware of. I know
Wonderful.
there was a news report one of the first days out. A mother had, I think, 7 children, and then she had 2 at Godby, 4 at Astoria, and 1 maybe at Griffin. And there were some issues, and they were spread out in the house, but we got those resolved quickly. I mean, so we're just working. That team is working as hard as they can to get everything resolved as quickly as possible.
All right. Miss Jillian.
Jillian, you want to talk a little bit about PD? All right, Justin, go eat dinner. Go home and eat some dinner. Thank you, buddy.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and school board members. It's my pleasure to speak with you this evening on professional learning. Over the last several weeks, in fact, months, since June 12th, our professional learning department has been working tirelessly to provide all kinds of professional learning for our teachers, beginning with the idea of Canvas and learning what a learning management system is, all the way through to advanced courses in Canvas to make sure that our teachers have what they need to instruct our students. And so what that looks like is all kinds of online, synchronous, and real-time professional development, but then also recordings of our professional developments that folks can access content at home. They can play and stop and pause and practice and play and pause. And so we're just super thrilled that we've been able to deliver, thousands and thousands of hours of professional learning to our teachers, some of whom took advantage of it over the course of the summer, of course, outside the scope of expectations. But again, because our teachers are so committed to making sure they provide the best educational experience for our students. Similarly, we launched for the very first time Leon County Schools' own online conference. We could go toe to toe with any of the national conferences because we provided our teachers, all thousands of them, access to content both live and recorded over the course of the first 3 days of the first pre-planning week. The conference was called Leon Forward. And so again, our teachers were able to drop in and participate in trainings. We offered many of the same trainings over the course of the day to try to meet their needs. But again, professional learning has done an amazing job under the leadership of Shane Seifert, Mr. Seifert, and then, of course, the coordinators, Ms. Pepe, Ms. Pickett, and Ms. Walden, and then all of the developers. We have Webby Wednesdays, which is instructional support for math and online for teachers, and that's under the leadership of Ms. Williams, Ms. Felicia Williams. Ms. Denise Williams who has a background in math, and this time last year was our secondary math developer, has pivoted and really reimagined her role back in June. And she has done an amazing job of providing both big picture and specific support to teachers and school administrators, walking them through problems related to what do we do when we have to have a sub? How do we process and organize that work through, Zoom's not working. How can I get Zoom to work on my device, and Teams and all of those kinds of things. And then, I want want to take a moment of privilege and just recognize all of their hard work. Again, Miss Satoris and Miss Winsett and Mr. Knight and Miss Goddard and the Title IV teachers who are providing advanced academic instruction to our gifted students at Title I schools. It has been, they have provided quality service, and they have done so with keeping our teachers in our schools at the center of our decision to support student achievement. So that's where we are in professional learning. We're a little busy, but it's just kind of one of those things where, if you think back to where we were a year ago and thought we were going to launch a one-to-one initiative with devices from all over, but with really transforming instruction in our school district, I don't think any of us would have thought we would have been able to get where we are. And now we're in the part of the process where we're refining things, right? So now we're getting into the little nitty-gritty things like, I've deleted a document, how can I go find it? And so providing that daily digital tips and tools, which we do right now. We've done it the first week of school, and we're doing it this week to teachers, just to help everyone feel like their feet are underneath them. And so we're really here to be a support and a safety net for our school teacher community and our student achievement. And that's where we are with professional learning.
Thank you, Jillian. And to her point, I'm just so proud of of the effort of our teachers. I mean, it's just every one of them. They're so professional, and they've taken this. And I know that this has not been easy. And I've talked to some teachers that are just so hard on themselves and demand excellence and demand perfection, and they're not getting that because this has been hard for them, and it's weighing on them, and that does not go unnoticed. But all we're asking is just do the best you can, and we will continue to grow, continue to develop, and continue to learn. But we have come a long way in a very short period of time. So with that, I'll take any questions.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Jones?
Two particular areas of concern for me were certainly access as well as professional development for our instructors, that they would be able to, you'll recall during our task force discussions, the onboarding of Canvas was just rightfully described as something that would be possibly difficult, rancorous, and the like. To find out that we've used such great innovation to mitigate both of those concerns for a successful reopening of schools, I just want to applaud everyone involved at the district level and at our individual sites. But I'm very, very happy to hear that access was not a issue, that those who needed to were well served, that they had the devices or whatever supplementals they needed so that they could be able to be engaged. That is great news. When you talk about a number as great as 8,500 devices distributed to our student population through digital academies, that is in itself a phenom. You're going to have to tell us the secret how you do this without hiring a whole cadre of people to make it happen. And then to be able to serve them through innovation like a call center, I just think it's just fantastic. It speaks to the quality leadership at our district. But then I also am very delighted to hear what we're talking about in terms of ongoing professional development, particularly as we're even finessing and fine-tuning instruction through digital academies and onboard instruction occurring simultaneously. That too, I think, is very important. Webby Wednesdays and the like. Again, it goes back to what I talk about often at this dais, and I hear from my colleagues about the great innovation, the genius of the district, and how we're able to harness the intellectual capital of our leadership and our administrators and our directors and their teams to really have impact. And here now we shine most specifically when the dark clouds have gathered on the horizon, and yet we are able to shine. So kudos to everyone involved. You know I had to throw my Rattler allegory in there. But again, Mr. Superintendent, to all involved, kudos to each of you. Great news.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Ms. Wood.
I'd like to echo what my
course.
colleagues have said in appreciation, beginning with the superintendent and this board, and then everybody else. And especially, I know this was probably the hardest opening week for anybody, particularly our teachers, who have had to learn so much so fast. School will never be the same, because the one silver lining in this cloud is that a lot of people have had to learn a lot of things really fast, and it will change instruction. I hope for the better, although we certainly want to get our kids away from computers all the time, because that's not such a great thing. But at least the technology is there now, and everyone's learning how to use it. I want to take a special thanks to all the parents at home who are monitoring their children and who listen to our call to keep their kids home if they could, because that's a hardship. It's hard to, become the all-day teacher, monitor, and do your job. And so many parents made that decision, and that's what's made it possible to see some of those pictures with 4 and 5, 6 kids in a class. If they hadn't made that choice,
That's right.
we would be looking at a very different situation than we are right now. So I just want to thank those particular parents who made that choice and are monitoring their children and allowing our teachers to be safer and other kids to be safer. So I don't know that they've been thanked yet. I want to thank them. And a special thanks, of course, to you all and to the teachers, the principals, everybody else. It's really remarkable.
It is.
That you've had 2 entire different kinds of school systems going on, and we're in the 6th day, and we know we're going to have bumps ahead, and we know people have had to be patient and flexible because everything didn't work perfectly, but it'll get there, and just want to thank everybody for that.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Woods. Ms.
Madam Chair.
Strickland? Yes, ma'am.
Again, yes, what everybody said, but I do want to talk about something just for a second that to me is a little alarming and something that we need to keep our eye on. And I'm assuming these are the most accurate numbers of brick and mortar versus Digital Academy. So when we first got the numbers, and then they shifted a little bit, but this, I'm concerned, and I know there's no. We can't tell people what to do. They're doing what's best for their families. But these numbers show predominantly our Title I schools have much lower brick and mortar enrollment than our more traditional, higher socioeconomic neighborhood schools. And I'm concerned. And I don't, we think of our Title I students are the ones that maybe lack the access, lack the sometimes the family support at home. They have some at-risk factors that we know there's a divide there, and these numbers, and it is consistent, guys. I mean, it's consistent. It doesn't vary.
Oh my God, I am so
That's okay.
embarrassed,
Don't be
y'all.
embarrassed.
I just can't handle this. Go ahead. Please
Anyway,
excuse
this
me.
is something I think I'm concerned too. Are we going to see students that just don't show up? And how are we going to handle that when it happens? As far as the Digital Academy kids, and I don't know if we have the answers to those. I know that those principals and those teachers are doing everything they can to make sure those kids are active and engaged. But we know we got handed the other day that they're saying they're going to hold us accountable for standardized testing this year. So we get to the spring, and if it holds true and they put that test in front of us, what's going to happen. So we Ms. Wood is an advocate of look at the numbers, look at the statistics. You can tell a lot from data, and this is something I think we need to keep an eye on.
And we do have it at a number of our schools, or some of these schools where principals are still looking for families, looking for kids, actively searching the best they possibly can. If no one really predicted this. I guess we should have seen early on. No one predicted it. To Ms. Bowen's point, as we got later and we started seeing the adverse impact that this virus was having on certain communities,
Absolutely.
more than others, then it became abundantly clear that this was going to be the situation for us in the fall. But to your point, yes, for us to work on ways to support DA Title I kids, Jillian's not ready to speak to that tonight, but
Sure.
we talked about that today at our leadership meeting.
Right.
And you wanna give them just a quick snippet of things you're working on in that area?
And I know this is not, I know, Jillian,
Very-
I'm not telling you anything you haven't already seen in this. And I know you guys have already, we're already so far, on top of this, but just know that it's being recognized by the board as well. And I think we all share, can't speak for everybody else, but I know we share the concerns for those students, deep concern.
Absolutely. And so we are concerned as well. And so there are a couple of different things that we're tackling. And our goal is to bring it to you as a total package so you can see how all of it works together. But just in big picture terms, one of the concerns that we have is the learning gap that can happen as a function of the pandemic. And so we have an initiative called Launch into Learning, which we did a soft launch during the last 2 weeks. And we're pushing out this evening and tomorrow in the coming weeks to really provide resources to families at home to engage in content outside of the school day so that they are able to remediate and support students. But what we also know is that for that might not reach everybody, right? That's going to reach the engaged family. And so we are working with our 21st Century Schools and our partnership under the leadership of Dr. Glenn to really provide deep, meaningful remediation and support for our students aligned to the standards after the school day. And then we are also in the process of developing a safety net support plan for all of our students, in the Title I schools. And then if we're able to pull it all together, we would be able to replicate that in other locations. That includes homework help, free tutoring, a reward system with delicious treats like ice cream, pizza share kinds of events, things for parents to take home with them and to have for their students, but also really to provide our students with extra layers of support. For some of our children, they haven't picked up a book since March 13th, and we recognize that. We have purposefully delayed academic progress monitoring to begin this week because we wanted last week really to focus on relationships and on that social emotional connection between students and teachers. But beginning today, we've opened up our progress monitoring platform so that our teachers can get in there and begin the process of assessing where students are. And then as we get that data, we'll use that to inform instruction. And then separately, of course, we always have our plans of support for our differentiated accountability schools. And those are those schools that are identified by school grade. And as you may recall, we didn't get school grades last year, but what the state has done is maintain the level of support required for those schools that were in the previous year's model. And so we are continuing to work diligently to provide those schools additional support. And so we will have a whole package for you that reflects both the tiered support that we provide at the district to the school and to the teachers, but also kind of the wraparound support that we're working together to provide our students and make sure that even students, regardless of where they are, have access to the necessary support in terms of academics and also social emotional learning that they might need to be successful this year.
Thank you, Jillian. Do you have another question for her?
Yeah, and I'm sorry to drag on. Do we have, what happens if we see kids that they're just not showing up? They're not showing up. They're not doing the work. We go through the first 9 weeks. They've been enrolled in Digital Academy, and we just see that basically they're not going to school.
One thing we've given additional resources to Dr. Rogers. So her team is going to start working this week with schools to actively send people out into homes.
Okay.
So she has a whole team of folks that are going to start linking and saying what's going on, knocking on doors, making visits. So she is standing at the ready, starting this week to start doing that, and then to ensure that we're linking them back with their schools to see what problems they're having. Engaging what the problems are.
Okay.
So she has a group of people they're starting to knock on doors this week.
Well, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Go.
Will part of that knocking on doors be done by counselors or psychologists? I have a concern that with everything that these children are going through, that might need to be a more careful look given to what they are experiencing. And so
this won't be a gotcha like we're going to turn you into DCF. This is we've noticed we haven't heard from you. What is it we need to do to help you and your child? And then we'll take that information down. A lot like we're doing with this help desk. Is the help desk will write a ticket, then they'll get it to the person that's best suited to answer those questions. And so these people will be knocking on doors and writing a help ticket, say help's on the way, and then getting it to the person that can solve those individual problems for those families.
All right, we'll see how that goes. Okay, that's a good first step, I think, to get started. Further questions, Mr. Superintendent? Are you done? Was that it?
Good?
Okay.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, good job. We
Madam Chair, I move consent.
We're not there
Madam
yet.
Chair.
we're not quite there just yet. Hold
My
on.
apologies. Yeah, we have item 6,
Yes.
public comments.
We are on the persons to be heard.
Madam
Sorry.
Chair,
That's okay. Go ahead.
prior to the meeting, there were 3 public comments that were sent to the persons to be heard at leonschools.net email address. Those public comments have been attached to under agenda item 6.01. They have been emailed to board members and they will be attached to the minutes of this meeting. In addition, we have 2 individuals here to speak. The first person to be heard is Ms. Shari Gawanter. Ms. Gawanter, you have, please give us your full name and address and you'll have 3 minutes.
Shari Gawanter, Pontiac Drive, teacher. Here is a snapshot of the comments that have been shared about the first week of school. First, a visual. 3 Wild West-style custodians with Zep cleanser, spraying streams and making puddles on tables while students are still present. Day 2, puddles again. Our team is wiping down classes. We don't trust the work that's being done. Only on the first day with students and not during pre-planning, custodians did deep cleaning. DL elementary parent unmuting themselves multiple times and they won't be quiet and speaking inappropriately. AM parent drop-off, nothing but thankful comments. Kids are happy to be back. Classroom stays open to the heat and humidity for 2 days while multiple painters scrape and paint doors. Trainings, meetings every single day during pre-planning, every single day. Frustrating. Told it would, but Canvas is not fully linked to Focus to import grades, so lots of extra work. H600 masks with cleaning instructions included that would damage the masks. Teaching all subjects with hybrid, I can't continue. Even if broken links are fixed, computer email works, and all the kids have devices, I can't do this. Nobody is getting the best of my teaching. Everybody is losing. 12 hours a day, just want to cry when I get home. I still have so much to do. Parents Report helpline is nothing but busy. Computer distribution to families packed in oversized boxes, had to unpack the equipment into cars. Training was too much, too many choices, overwhelming or not applicable. Takes too much time to get my DA students focused. Day 2, better than yesterday, only lost internet connection 2 times. 2 classes of 27 digital students each. I said, unmute yourself about 5 dozen times. Microphone not working this morning, so they couldn't hear me. Internet outage this afternoon was great. Students decide to bring his dog to the meeting and disrupts the session for all. Teaching to an empty metal chair in the middle of a room for a DL student today. I can't help but feel like no matter what we do, students on DA are getting a much better, different experience than the brick and mortar. I don't understand why anyone is doing hybrid. I would have looked for a new career if it came down to teaching both at my school. Feeling like a jerk, having to tattle on coworkers who refuse to wear their masks repeatedly. This is just a quick snapshot just of the first week of school. It is hard. It is always hard, but this year isn't any different. Frustration, knowing that the county is holding in the top 4 of most cases of COVID in the state. And we educators and staff are feeling like we are failing our children. Many feel that it didn't have to be this way and we could have done a better job and made different choices. Thank you.
Thank you. Our second and last speaker is Scott Mazer. Please give us your full name and address and you'll have 3 minutes.
Scott Mazer, 3319 Dartmoor Drive, Tallahassee, Florida. While this meeting was going on tonight, I received a text from a colleague of mine, and it just starts off, hey, just venting, no need to follow up. I'm about to quit. This is a sentiment of a number of teachers that are in the district. There have been some resignations starting on Friday, some that came in today giving 2 weeks notice, and the pressures that are in place right now are overwhelming. So with that put, meet the challenge. So my challenge to you, Superintendent, is this, is teacher morale. Because right now, you do understand what the teachers are doing. Just the extent to the miracles that they're working of going above and beyond, because when they do leave, they're taking about 6 hours worth of work home with them. When this 3-day weekend happened, they were working over the weekend to get themselves prepared for this week. We knew this would happen. Communication. As far as in a school site earlier today, they had 3 different communications. It depended on who it came from. There was no clarity. And I wasn't even a part of the conversation, but I was listening in. Hybrid. Anyone who says it's not more work hasn't done it. Cleaning. People are wondering what's the difference between deep cleaning and disinfecting, and why it is that sometimes even the garbage, just little things, sweeping the floor, things like that, aren't getting taken care of. Stress levels are at an all-time high. Quitting, contemplating, crying. People are just overwhelmed with the amount of technology that's taking place right now and the stresses that come along with it. Add on top of that, the testing. Most of the time is because teachers really want to know that they're doing the right by their students. And so then now if we have to think about what an evaluation looks like, testing looks like, school grade looks like, we already had people that wanted to go ahead and do observations of classrooms this week. That's a little overwhelming. Assessments started last week for a number of students because teachers were worried that they couldn't get to the point where they were going to have everyone assessed when things started up. I bring these things to you because I need you to understand that we've surveyed the teachers. We had almost 1,000 people respond. The number of the teachers that are in the hybrid mode are overwhelmed. 82% of them would even consider doing larger digital class sizes just because it is that difficult to do 2 different models at the same time and balance the students back and forth. Put on top of that we have concerns that 62% said that they haven't brought those concerns to their site administrator. Why is it that we don't have that communication? Why is it that we can't have that? I heard a lot of glowing things tonight, and there is a lot of good work that's being done, but I don't know if we're hearing the voices of the people that are doing it. And any part of education is the teacher, is the student, and is the parent. I heard a lot about parents and students tonight, how happy they were.
Time.
About teachers.
Thank you for your comments.
Mr. Superintendent, I am interested, and I know that there is a method and manner by which we, as a district, because we are data-driven, we rely upon data to inform us. I know that you've already described that there are persons who are as we're now in our 6th day, I've in my conversation with principals have talked about innovation that they share amongst colleagues, right? I would hope that perhaps at a date determined that you would be prepared to report back to us what finessing that we're continuing to do across the district as we're seeing best practices and operating in these multiple platforms. I am aware of a story that was shared just recently about how teachers combined classes to work with digital as well as site-based students simultaneously because of the numbers that they had in their classes. So I think those best practices, as you continue to share modeling, best practices will go a long way, and I look forward to hearing more about that in our upcoming reports about the reopening of schools. And I know that reopening of schools is a agenda item that's, by virtue of its name, may seem time limited, but I think these types of updates coming from you that we communicate to our public and to this board are very important. And if it perhaps requires renaming, but from reopening now that we are indeed open, but those types of updates I think help to inform us, our community, about what we know what we're doing, and it can also inform both internal and external stakeholders. And I think that type of conversations are worth having, continuing and ongoing.
I agree.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
this might be more directed toward Opal. Is there a chance we can flip-flop persons to be heard with reports to be heard? And I feel that we've gotten really lengthy with our reopened schools or whatever it is we're going to call it now, and I don't see that ending anytime. And these people have worked a really long day already, and if they want to stay, then they can, obviously. But I would recommend that we, if everyone might agree, that we move persons to be heard up before reports to be heard.
I agree.
So the agenda would be amended for moving forward so that persons to be heard is item number 5.
Yes.
And then reports to be heard would be items number 6.
Yeah, how do y'all feel about that?
I love
I
it.
just know we've been going long. Okay, good.
That'll be fine.
It's the least we can do.
I like it.
I know we're going long lately, so that would be great if we could do
Okay,
that.
I will let Dr. Gale know.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, ma'am. Ms.
just
Wood.
along the, was a little bit along those lines, based on what our two speakers have just told us, I would hope, Superintendent, that you could do some surveying yourself or through the principals and really get to the meat of, what people are happy about and what they're really unhappy about. And I know that's going to be a process because this is all so new and so hard. But there has to be some kind of feedback loop where we just make sure we're getting the, on the ground information. It's not being filtered because sometimes people are afraid to tell their boss that they're unhappy or you. Some way to really get a, good feel and listen to the comments that have just been shared. And of course, we all understand how hard this is, but if there's some things that can be done to help people, then obviously we want to do it.
Ditto. Further comments? Thank you. All right. So,
And can I also make
Mr.
this
Jones?
additional point? And I know in our we're talking about the good things. There's another good thing I'd like for us to talk about, and that is what has been the way we have been way we have been managing our message. I know that School Board Member Woods and I and others have all talked about that. The Leon County School website has been it's been so user friendly and informative. The messages, the videos, the messaging to both internal and external stakeholders, I think, has really, really been phenomenal, particularly prior to the reopening of schools. I think it went a long way to providing certain confidences and reassurances about what has been our efforts, our commitment, our activity in preparing our schools. And then the messaging has continued since the opening of schools, even with your presentation today, to talk about what it looks like, showing it to us in real time. The persons who have been managing that type of messaging, I'd also like to acknowledge them and their work too. That has gone a long way in helping us to put a vision to what has been our conversation. And lastly, I hope that although I'm sure we will now no longer need to convene our task force, I would like to make certain that the district does provide acknowledgement for those community-based volunteers who have served us prior at the very beginning of what has been this discussion.
absolutely. All right. Well, we have great comfort tonight in hearing where we are, and we can hear that we still have some challenges, some hiccups, and some concerns that we are in agreement that we will still work on to make this system be what it can be, and that is to be better. So we thank each of you for your comments tonight about this particular topic, and I think we're ready to move on to the next item. Would I be correct?
I think Daryl
Thank
already
you.
moved us there.
Yes, we moved you there? Good.
I move
All right, for the item of consent.
all the consent items.
Is there a second? Second by Wood. Questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposes the same. So now we are into.
Madam Chair?
Yes,
Could I get one, and I don't know if Kim, I know the finance team is gone, but 11.03, the CARES grant, it was like $7.8 million.
Uh-huh.
Superintendent, is there anyone that can give just a brief synopsis?
Of what we've been trying to spend the money on?
Yeah, I see some GEAR, CTE. I see some some acronyms that I don't know what they are. So I
What
just
number
wanted-
was that, Madam Miss Strickland? That was
It's 11.03. It's in consent. It's obviously, money related to the
okay.
CARES Act that was received. But I just was wondering if there was summer. It says summer recovery, but it's got K-12. I don't know if there's anybody that can just.
So now a portion of that money went to charter schools, private schools, and others. So our share was not $7 million; it was less than that.
Mm-hmm.
But Kim wrote a plan, and she can detail you the plan that's already been approved by the department.
Is it in the book somewhere? Could you?
No, I'm not. I don't think it's in necessarily.
Because it's 2021, right?
It was referenced in the budget.
So it would be
document.
in here somewhere, I would assume. You know what? I'll get with her later. It's okay. I mean, we got the money, so that's great. I'm just not
Well,
questioning. I just
we
would
don't
like to
have
know.
it yet, but we've submitted. Our plan's been
Okay.
approved.
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready now to move to item 18. Is that where we are?
1901.
18, wait, 19, 18.
Yeah.
We're at 1901. All right then. Is there a motion for consideration? There's a public hearing.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Hi, good evening. I brought to you on August 4th the leave of absence procedures, where we asked for them to be amended to add the word furlough, and they have now been advertised for 30 days. So I'm requesting that we adopt those amendments to our policies.
I move adoption.
It's been moved.
Do we no public hearing?
Yes, Madam Chair, you have to open the public hearing, and then I'll
Sorry.
just say there are no speakers.
Moving too fast. The public hearing is open. Are there any speakers?
Madam Chair, there are no speakers on this item.
There are no speakers. All right. Now, having no speakers, we're ready now to vote this
Close
into.
the public hearing and then.
Vote public hearing into acceptance.
So close the public hearing, yes?
We close the public hearing.
And somebody moved.
And so somebody has moved that we accept this
1901. Move approval.
1901. Did you do that or did you, Ms. Wood?
I'm not sure, but I'll do it now.
Okay.
Ms. Wood, and it's second by Mr. Jones.
Yes, ma'am.
Questions? We get it together. Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously 4. Okay. Now we're at 1902, which is a public hearing for adoption. Are there speakers?
No, Madam Chair, no speakers.
Okay.
Close the public hearing.
We're going to close the public hearing. All right.
Move approval 1902.
And now it's moved for
Second.
approval and second by Jones, offered by Wood. All in favor? Questions? None. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
It passes unanimously. Okay. Now we're down at 1903 again. Another. Open the public hearing.
Madam Chair, there are no speakers on this item.
There are no speakers.
I move acceptance of 19.0.
Okay, we're going to close the public hearing. And then we're going to move it by Mr. Jones. And it's seconded by
Second.
Ms. Stripling. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposes, nay. It passes 4-0. Now we're at 1904, memorandum of understanding between the District School Board of Leon County and Leon County Teachers Association for the Florida Department of Education Declaration of Differentiated Accountability DA Schools.
Move approval.
Moved by Wood, second by Stripling. Discussion, questions? Hearing none. What is the pleasure? It's been moved in second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposes, nay. It passes 4-0. Okay, 1905, a memorandum of understanding between the District School Board of Leon County and the Leon County Teachers Association regarding the reopening for the 2020-2021 school year.
Move approval.
Move approval by Stripling, second by questions, comments. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, it passes 4-0. All right, we're now at information items for upcoming meetings. Now, reports from board liaisons, questions, concerns there, superintendent's comments.
Briefly, Madam Chair, I
Yes.
can assure you that the comments made tonight by the teachers that were here did not fall on deaf ears. And we knew this was not going to be perfect.
Right.
We also knew this was not going to be forever. It's just for now. And managing this situation, again, with quarantine and all the other things that are going on, we felt like this was the best plan moving forward. But we will continue to provide those teachers the professional development, working with a buddy to get them whatever they need to make this experience better for them moving in the days and the weeks to come. I would remind you, at the end of the first day of school, Chris Petley forwarded me an article that the Democrat posted late about how our students felt about the first day of school. I'm not sure if you had a chance to read that or not. And they interviewed about 12 or 13 students at all different levels. And the final student made the remark, today was magical. It was almost revolutionary. I couldn't be more happier than to go back to school. I feel at home again. Guys, that said it all. And we're in a time where people are just looking for a chance to shoot an arrow. But our kids, the reason we're in this profession, are glad to be back. And the ones that aren't physically back are glad to be back, even remoting in, to some sense of normalcy, to some sense of being a kid again. And for all those efforts, every single one of us should be very proud, because we're in it for those children, and the children are happy. So, thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Continuing concerns from board members. Ms. Wood, you noted?
I brought this up a couple of times, and we weren't able to have a workshop this week, so I'm just going to, I've talked to Dr. Gale about this and the superintendent, and I feel good that we're going to move forward with some of these things. And there's just 2 or 3 things that I think are, we really need to have a plan for. One is, in the case of school closure, which of course we're hoping will not happen, but it might, and that some people we know are still going to need supervision because they're children of essential workers or they have disabilities that just can only be met. They need supervision at school. I'd like us to have a plan for that, and a priority plan, because it's possible, if this were to happen, that the school wouldn't be able just to let everyone come back that wanted to. We might have to have almost a rationing situation where people who met certain criteria would have first dibs, second dibs, third dibs. And I think that needs to be established ahead of time so that we aren't making that up on the fly. It's just sort of a COVID 2.3 or whatever it's going to be. And so I would really ask the superintendent if we could look at these suggestions and other people's suggestions and have a solid plan that this board has listened to and talked about before we ever would have to implement it, so that there's no confusion in the community if we have to have a, phase 2 or phase 3. So I think that's really important that we do that, and I hope you will take the leadership on that and maybe form a committee that could really bring us back some ideas that then we could discuss. Something that Ms. Striplin kind of referred to, I think, is really thinking about, especially our Title I children, having community learning hubs. I've talked to Dr. Gale. I believe she's going to sort of take charge of that, which I'm excited to hear, and really help our community, help our children who especially need that extra help that may not be getting it at home. So look forward to what you come back with, Dr. Gale, on that. And I think, you're already talking about extended learning opportunities. You already mentioned that today, after school activities, our mental health outreach to children who, especially the ones who are at home. And so I think the district has already taken care of a lot of these topics in the plan, but those first 2, I think, are the most critical. Having a 2.0 plan and having some community supports in place. So look forward to y'all coming back to this board with your ideas on that. And it sounded like Ms. Gregory's already got some ideas about it as well. So y'all are a good team, and you've moved mountains already, so I'm sure you can do this as well.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll work on that. And Dr. Gale's been tasked with that, so we'll report back to you all before our next workshop.
And that's what I was thinking, that I think this is something to be workshopped. There are already existing community partners that I know that we're already working with. I can also tell you that clergy persons have already organized themselves around these issues with persons like Lamar Simmons and Quincy Griffin and Reverend Elwood. And so there's about 100 preachers organized. I think that a part of this, when we come to workshop, would be identifying partners, Monique Ellsworth and others who are already engaged. Particularly when I look at what we're talking about is for those community hubs. I think it all works, but I think it requires us bringing all of those resources to bear, that we can talk about how we operationalize what are these recommendations? And I guess that occurs in the context of a workshop, but it is certainly a conversation worth having. I think about Kelly Lister Walker, who knows everybody. Right? And you just can't,
Everybody.
you have this, she's got to be a part of that conversation because she can get folks in line as our formidable conversations and connections through the foundation, and then as a board, right? We too are ambassadors and emissaries in our respective communities who can also bring that talent to bear. So it's exciting, really, when you think about it, about how we can make this happen. And just want to call all hands on deck. But our conversations outside of the context of the formality of this dais, but I'm all in, as a sheriff would say.
Yes, yes. I too support this idea and look forward to it. It is needed, and I think that our constituents from our varying communities would be happy to help us with this, and I look forward to us doing this as soon as possible, because I really don't think that the COVID virus is going to go away anytime soon, and hopefully we won't have to go through reopening again, but we don't know. But to have as many hands on deck to help us with this, and to know that we will value their input and their energy, and be sincere about the commitment that we're asking them for, because I keep saying there's nothing worse than make promises and then have folk pull back and you don't have what you thought you had. So I look forward to this and certainly want to help in a way that I can, Ms. Wood. I'm excited as well. And you have brought this up on a couple of other occasions, so I look forward to it as well. Okay, was that it? No? Yes?
There's 2 more on there.
All right. So let me see. That was from Board Member Ward. Was that your only concern you had?
That was mine, yes.
Okay. All right. Then we're under now 2302, which is a concern of mine that I am bringing to the board. And it simply states that I am asking that we consider and require an annual diversity training for all Leon County Schools employees. And you will know that this is not the first time we brought this up and we discussed it. But I'm going to be perfectly honest and upfront, as I think I've always been. Incidences over the past few days in our system causes me to think that it is important that we continue to push for this and make it happen. I want to push for it in a way that it is tied to our budget so that it flows over into the professional development area. I think that the time is now right for us to take a look at having this kind of training given annually every year. When I was a little girl growing up, my dad worked for, he helped to build the Jim Woodruff Dam, okay? Somebody sold him a 1952 Ford truck that he really should not have bought, but he needed to get from Mariana to Chattahoochee 30 miles. And day after day, night after night, my dad would have me, as the oldest of 5 children, out in our front yard with a lamp, a kerosene lamp. And he had to get under that 1952 truck and work on something on that motor every day so he could get to work. And I didn't understand why he wanted to be under there working when that truck had no glass windows in either side. He had to use a piece of pasteboard, cardboard is what you call it now, to make his windows. And I got tired of holding that light for him. And I said, Daddy, why won't you get some windows for this truck? And he says, Joy, you've got to work on the front end first. If you take care of the front end, then everything else will follow. Well, my colleagues, in my mind, this is front end work. If we have people who come to work in this district understand that diversity training is important to us, inclusivity training, equity, multicultural education is part of what you are expected to know before you even sign on the dotted line in this system, I think it would go a long way. I think there's so many people who want to work for us, in particular with the way we use our words these days. They don't have mean intentions, but they need to be trained and told and taught that these things are offensive. And so I want to push for this like never before. I don't think that it has to be very long, the training. It doesn't need to be exhaustive, Mr. Superintendent, but I do think that it should be relevant, it should be objective, prescriptive, and it needs to be intentional. All so often we have new people coming in with their zeal and energy to want to help, and they don't know how to help. And so I think it's going to be incumbent upon us to help them to see how important this training would be. And this required training, I would push for it to be from the top down, and it needs to be done annually. If it is not done, we are going to be experiencing, in my opinion, some of the same kinds of, I don't want to call them problems, behaviors that we are experiencing now. And whatever happens in this district, the backlash this board will face. And I think that we can do a better job of making sure that this kind of commitment and this kind of effort is done, and it is done correctly. And I think that employees who have to undergo this will have to sign off. I have had diversity training, I understand, and all of that I think would be important to us, making sure, as I keep saying, that the awareness of sensitivity to cultural differences and similarities is where we want to go with this. So I offer that, and I'm interested in whatever you have to say. I think that this is past due. I think that, again, if this is done, had been done, then we probably would not have to be having some of the kind of discussions that we've had in this community over the past couple of days. So that to me is very important. Mr. Superintendent, I'd love to know what you think about it. The subject matter, inclusivity, sensitivity, I guess I'm talking around and around and saying the same things, but I know you feel what I'm talking about, and I believe you agree with me. So at this point, I just need to put that out there. It could make part of, somebody mentioned morale in the system. I think if we were to do this kind of training on an annual basis, at least, in some ways it could help morale. I think that oftentimes as supervisors, when we have new people coming in, and perhaps some old ones, all of us are frustrated. We have some fears about COVID. We have some confusions. We have anxieties. We are in our own personal lives, and then our teachers are in their professional lives. And so I'm asking to have this done and to have supervisors reach out to our teachers when they seem to feel overwhelmed, identify that. And I'm also asking to have this tied to an understanding that perhaps some of our folk might need to attend the EAP program. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that needs to be encouraged so that these folk can continue to work and to give us the kind of day's work and can help them with their issues and challenges should there be some. So I ask for that most sincerely. I'd love to see it happen right away. I don't know where we are with it. We've asked for workshops and that kind of thing, but that is my recommendation on that particular topic. Questions, concerns from anyone?
So you have spoken about this before, Ms. Bowen, and I'm meeting with our folks. They are frantically working on finding something of quality that we feel like would benefit all of our employees. And I would just offer, when you have 4,500 full-time employees, 1,500 part-time employees from time to time, things happen.
Yeah,
there's no explaining why they happen. They just happen. And you kind of shake your head and go, what was that? And but to your point, I'm in full agreement. I don't think it's widespread, but there's enough where I think it's important for us to set the message, starting with me, that these are the expectations, and that I'm going to be the first at the training table, and to make this a requirement. But I'm in full agreement. We just want to find a product that we feel as though is worthy of putting in front of our employees, and for them to get a message that they will take with them each and every school year. But I agree wholeheartedly, and I'll have our folks again report at our next agenda review on where we are.
All right.
If I could just add to that, the Southern Poverty Law Center has excellent materials. Teaching Tolerance is a magazine they put out every month. It's excellent. So that might be a really good place to start. That's what they do.
I use the Southern Poverty Law Center at FSU, Florida State, and I'm sure by now they have upgraded many of their presentations. So it could be one of the recommendations, but whatever quality piece that you have, it served well at FSU for years and years because all of us had to take it. And so I offer that. Thank you. We will look forward to that, particularly for next year. I mean, some things could be done now, but next year, Mrs. Superintendent, as folk come in, I don't know how many planning days they have before they actually go to their classes, start to teach. But to open it so that it can be at the Civic Center, I don't care where it is, Lincoln, wherever, but to have that happen and have them know where we are. And related to that, were there other comments? Okay, related to that, I said to develop and share a formalized communication plan. Now, I will admit that I have had some problems on my phone, and I need to apologize first for my phone having gone off here. I'm a little bit embarrassed about that. I am. I hope it won't happen again, but it might. Okay, so I apologize for that. Everybody's laughing. They know that I'm the dinosaur on the board when it comes to technology. I appreciate it, but occasionally I don't get everything right on there. So I am asking for a formalized communication plan. So that we can know what's happening. Now, maybe because my phone was hacked here last week, I didn't get messages and such stuff. But, and I'm not trying to take away, I just think that it is needed and that board members are duly elected officers, and we need to be in the loop, and the superintendent is duly elected. When things go down, as the kids say, we get these calls. You all work for Rocky, Rocky work for you all. And there is this big piece of confusion out there. So I would like for that to be at some workshop or the other, an opportunity to discuss, and this sounds like a retreat topic. I don't mean for it to, but to talk about the board members' responsibilities and the superintendent's responsibilities. We know that our duties are set forth in Florida statute number what? The education code. The education code. But our constituents don't. And so we all get, and so we're teaching. So we teach even as we do the jobs that we do here. And so I'm asking for a more formalized plan so that information can be shared with us as we are charged with enforcing school board policies and procedures. I think that is pretty important, and that it will be timely so that we don't have to get information from the street committee or from neighbors, to find out what's happening in our schools. And I'm not trying to usurp superintendent's authority and power, nor am I trying to usurp powers from the principals. But we just want to be in the know about some things, so that when I'm in Publix, rarely though I am, as a senior citizen with COVID, and somebody says, oh, didn't you know? I probably didn't know, but, that kind of thing. And it's important if we're going to continue to be Team Leon to do these kinds of things and to not be embarrassed when citizens call us to find out what's happening. Okay, comments? Oh, I'm worried when you all are quiet.
You said it.
You said it.
But I agree with you. I think that we can all work on that. It can certainly be improved. Sometimes, if none of us like to be caught off guard with headlines and really not known in advance. And although I know that Mr. Petley and the superintendent and others and Dr. Gale, but perhaps some way that we formalize that, I agree, can perhaps go better, and conversations with the superintendent perhaps more frequently regarding possible can I say it again? Dark clouds that may gather on the horizon.
Okay, I get you.
But thank you. I agree with you, ma'am.
All right. And my final thought, given various and more recent conversations, is that there should be an establishment of a clear social media policy governing Leon County Schools employees with related penalties for violation. I think and this is back to that front end expectation, even if it needs to be a pledge, I understand that if I violate the social media policy of Leon County Schools, this is the penalty that would probably suit the particular case of the violation. I think that would be important to have. I think that our staff, the superintendent staff, needs to continue to be informed of the position that they hold in the public organizations, so that when errors occur, I'm going to call them errors. I'm going to call them errors, that everybody will know what's happening. And we may not get the onslaught of calls that we gotten, and it's called something else, and we can't stop that. But I think the more transparent we are, and the more we say that we are about the business of equity and being fair and showing that when there is information out there that might reflect negatively on this board, we're not trying to hide anything, and that we want to make certain that we're proactive in this area and we won't have to be reactive when this happens. So again, I think once you come to work for a Leon County school, you know that you're going to get some diversity training. Once you work for a Leon County school, you know that there is a social policy piece when it comes to social media, and if you and what the penalties are should you break that particular whatever it's called. You know where I'm going with this, and I need to be clear about that.
You're clear. I totally agree with you. We need this more than anything.
Yep.
If an employee says something disparaging, especially about the Leon County School District, that should be completely forbidden on social media.
Right.
Well, we have to watch out about First Amendment rights.
Yeah, and we should. I believe in it.
The whole policy we have to.
Well, I think we need to massage something, because people need to be held accountable for what they put out there.
Have legal review.
Yep, we can do that.
But First Amendment rights also bring consequences.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just saying that is part of the.
And I don't want to remove anybody's First Amendment rights. We teach our children. We want them to understand that. But you know what? I will tell you another thing that hit me. You can tell that I'm in the house a lot, and I've been thinking about this. But one of the things that I thought about when all this was going on, and these words were out there, I saw this as a cry for help. When you look at the words and how they were placed there. So when that cry for help was out there, I thought, again, let's do some referrals to the EAP program. People are overwhelmed. People are frightened. People are confused. They have all of these different things that they must do to manage their lives. You probably have felt some of these things. And so I'm just saying, we talk about grace, flexibility, and what's that other one? Compassion. So I'm asking supervisors, Mr. Superintendent, these are your staff folk, to look at people as they are working, and should they start to see that Miss Bowen is acting a little strange, she might need some help. Somebody needs to talk with Miss Bowen, because that will help her not to go out there, you know what I'm saying, and say some things, because she's feeling overwhelmed, And so when we talk about the grace, the flexibility piece, and I dare not go into my brother's keeper and everything, but I just feel so strongly that this needs to happen, and it needs to happen right away, because if it doesn't, I think that we're going to have other instances. I just didn't know what to do, and I had to get it out. And that might be all right if I'm just saying this to Roseanne, but when others hear it, it ain't all right, because I'm offended about it. Right. And so I offer that most sincerely. And so not to infringe on anybody's First Amendment rights. I agree with them, but with the way words fly now from phone to phone and from Facebook to Twitter and all these other wonderful things that you all are knowing how to do, that's important, and I think it could save us. Again, the backlash is going to come to us, and so
Don't misunderstand my comment. I totally agree. We need to have a social media policy.
okay,
And it just has to be vetted by our
Yeah.
attorneys to make sure that, because a lot of this has been litigated in court, and so I think.
Absolutely.
But
I do.
I completely agree with you that we
Okay.
need to have some clear definitions and
Parameters. Okay.
employee deadline.
All right. So, see, I know Roseanne well enough to know that that's enough of that, Joy. So now, and that's a good thing, I respect that. Okay, so those are my thoughts. Any other thoughts or feelings? Okay.
Well, if I may offer this, and this has brought an issue that that concerned me from that.
It's hard to hear you, Daryl.
This is what has concerned me from what had been this discussion. And I am unapologetically a supporter of Title I schools. As you all know, my entire district, stretching from Fort Braden to Sable Palm to Pineview to Bond to Oak Ridge to Nims and to the James S. Rickards High School and Bond Elementary are all Title I schools. And I just want to say this to my community. It gave me pause that anyone would describe moving from a Title I school to a non-Title I school as a promotion. In my mind, the Gold Ring is a Title I school. Title I schools, its principals, its teachers, its staff, its faculty are the finest professionals in our community. And there are those who may leave Title I schools to go to other schools, either preferences or because opportunities, being possibly in closer proximity to family or to their home. But make it be very, very clear, the Mecca has moved south. The gold ring is found in our Title I schools because those professionals, under duress and with other stigmas and barriers that oftentimes stand in the way of student achievement, yet students learn in safe and wonderful and loving environments. So I just want the community to understand, never characterize leaving a Title I school going to a non-Title I school as a promotion.
Thank you.
Because some people leave Title I schools because they don't have what it takes. And it takes a very unique and special professional
Right.
to work in a Title I school. And I just want to put that out there in relationship, because words have meaning,
Yeah, they do.
both semantics and syntax. And I just want the word, as John F. Kennedy said, let the word go forth. The gold ring is Title I schools.
Well, let me, I dare not go you one better than that, Mr. Jones.
Go ahead.
But I can tell you this, I am Title I. I am Title I. And the difference is I have learned that I'm Title I, but I also know how to walk over into non-Title I. You follow me?
Damn.
Now, that would be my legacy. I am Title I. Woosah. Because I'm able to walk into those other spaces. Title I has made me what I am today from that kind of background. And so it is from that background and platform that I speak, though sometimes I try to throw a little humor into it. It's really not funny, and I'm doing it to not become all emotional. And so I do this for those children and the parents of Title I who are in this system trying to do what I think we are trying to do, that is walk into all of these other places. And so I just needed to throw that in like that. So as we work to educate all of our children, I ask that we just keep that in mind, and I appreciate your work.
Well, I can tell you, Ms. Bowen, it's no secret that my district doesn't have Title I schools. I am not Title I, and I am just as offended by what happened as you are.
Okay.
And it's just as unacceptable to me as it is to you.
Thank you.
And whatever we have to do to try to keep that from ever happening again,
Thank you.
I'm with you.
Thank you. Really appreciate that. Okay. All minds clear?
I do have I have a concern, and Dr. Gill can help to mitigate this for me. I don't know if everyone here is aware of what the Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce is doing with its Talent Hub. Its Talent Hub is going to be an enormous resource to our community in terms of job creation and facilitating the employment of people in our community. One of its principal partners is, of course, our own Lively Vocational Technical Center. I know that Dr. Gale has the Tallahassee Chamber of Commerce coming to present to us in the near future. But what makes this so very exciting, everyone, here coming up in the very near future through our office, the Office of Economic Vitality, one of the things that we have done as a part of our policy is to incentivize the use of apprentices and externs who will come from Lively Vocational Technical Center. What we will discover in this conversation is that here now, through this major $65 million project, an upcoming project for a new Tallahassee Senior Center and a new Tallahassee Fire Department headquarters, these municipal projects will be able to utilize our student population such that if we continue to push dual enrollment, when our young people graduate high school, they'll be armed with enough enough hours in service in their respective industries made possible through municipal projects that they can graduate with both their degree and their career in hand. I know we have put an emphasis on this in years past when I first joined the board. Here we'll have an opportunity. Dr. Gill, do you know when they'll be speaking to us? At our next board meeting, and I just wanted to say most specifically how very excited I am that the Chamber is doing this, and they'll be able to come to us to seek our support. It is a fantastic opportunity to help our young people to successfully complete their dual enrollment and be equipped to join the workforce. I think of your story, Mr. Superintendent, about the kid who had to come to your rescue when you tore up your front yard and broke your pipe.
Don't tell
worse,
it again.
it wasn't my front yard. It was someone else's.
Oh, you told.
But it's all. I get your point.
Thank you, sir.
Right. We would acknowledge the absence of our outstanding leader and chair and hope that she is feeling better tonight. So I know you're listening, Ms. Rasmussen. Feel better. All minds clear? This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.